Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning from wherever you are. Please, we'll be starting in a few minutes. So, just a few minutes and then we'll make a start. Great. So, if you can hear me, please um, just confirm that you can hear me on the chat. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Um, I'm glad to see those who are joining and just give a couple of minutes to make sure that no one is going to miss anything. So we could just, for those who've joined, we could start with introducing ourselves. So you can just put in the chat your name, where you're joining from, and probably your field of interest. Could be if you are into public health, if it's international commercial law, if you're in international development or food security or agriculture or climate change, whatever, just introduce yourself and then we'll make a start as people join. Thank you very much. I can see someone joining from Kenya. Great, great, great. Thank you very much. We have someone joining from Lesotho. Great to see you. Great, and we have Bangladesh. Nutritionist. Great, great, great. Grace from Malawi. So we'll be making a start in a few minutes. And yes, we have someone joining from Uganda. Great, great to see you. So I'll be making a start in 1 minute. So feel comfortable if you have a pen and a paper, if you don't want to take some notes, or if you don't want to just listen today or watch and then come back and rewatch and take the notes again. That's still acceptable. And yeah, and I'm so happy to see you all, and I'm looking forward to meeting some of you or reading your posts on LinkedIn after you've been selected for Chevening, for the Chevening Scholarship. So, which is one of the most prestigious scholarships you can get for your masters. We have, yeah, Thomas, you didn't say where you're joining from, but we have someone. Yeah, we have Josephat, an economist from Kenya. Great to see all of you, and great. So I'll be making a start in a few seconds. So, because we have seen the people who are here, they've introduced themselves. So my name is Sam, and I'm a PhD student at the University of Greenwich. My research focuses on food environment and the link between food environments and health or dietary outcomes. So technically that's public health. And I got the Chevening Scholarship in 2019-2020, and I did an MSc in Agriculture and Development from the University of Reading. A lot of people ask me why I'm in the UK. It's because I've already done my 18 months and then came back after 2 years. Technically, it's 2 years, yeah, 2 years. So, and I'm thrilled to have all of you here. And we've been receiving great feedback over the week of people who have gone back to rewrite their essays after these tutorial sessions. So one of the advantages you get by joining live and by registering is you get a free one-on-one 30-minute session where we go through your essays. So if you know you registered, then you reach out to me privately as soon as possible, or as soon as you've written your essays, and then we organize a session because again my availability is also limited, so we have to work and within all our time frames. So great to see all of you. So and in 2019 I also got the Marshall Purple Scholarship. Again, it's for agricultural courses. If you're not, you don't have to Google if you're not interested in agriculture. And I also got the Commonwealth Scholarship, Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, but I chose the Chevening Scholarship for reasons like prestige or being prestigious scholarship. So, and just like we will be going through the Chevening application process, so I'll give you insights. I'll also we go through all the essays and how you approach them, and you'll also get a chance to ask questions at the end. So if you have any questions, if you have any clarification, if I say anything and you need it to be clarified, then you'll have a chance to ask all those questions. So great. So so the Chevening Scholarship is one of the most prestigious scholarships in the world for master's courses and allows you to study at any UK university for master's course, which is basically 1 year, and it's fully funded by the UK government. And so the tuition fees and the living expenses are covered. So the only thing you need to do is have graduated, have a bachelor's degree. It doesn't matter whether it's a first class, a second class upper, or a second class lower, as long as you have found a university that accepts your qualifications and you have an offer. Chevening does not have a problem with whether you got a second class lower or a first class. The other thing is that you need 2 years experience, and these volunteering activities count as experience. If you did any placements or internships, as long as they were not part of you graduating, not the ones that you do for you to graduate or for you to have to be deemed to have finished your course. So those are not the kind of um, those are not the kind of work experiences they're looking for. They're looking for things that you do outside um, academic work, but you can still be doing them while in school. The other thing you have to do is demonstrate you have leadership skills, and that's generally the main thing, demonstrating that you're a leader. So, so the other thing that I'm going now to focus on is how do you, probably by now you've gone to the Chevening website, you've looked at how to fill those questions. Make sure you think through how you answer those questions. Some of them are yes or no, and depending on how, it might just tell you you're ineligible to apply just because of how you answer those questions. So be careful. Also, one of the things that I have been looking at and I was worried about is Chevening in their feedback said that most of the applicants, actually the ones whose applications were rejected at the first stage, had an issue in calculating their work hours. So you need to know how they calculate. So if you work full time, probably you work 8 hours a day and you work 5 days a week. So that's 40 hours. Then a year has how many working weeks? Then you multiply, because technically it is in the number of hours. If you do voluntary work, of course, you don't probably volunteer all the 8 hours, 5 days a week. So you need to know how to calculate those hours. Just make sure all the additions end up meeting the requirements for Chevening in terms of technically being 2 years of work experience. So I'm gonna move on now to how to write the first essay, and that's the leadership essay. The leadership and influence essay is one of the most important because it demonstrates that you're a leader in the first place and you're influential. So, because Chevening is looking for people who have the potential of being leaders in their own fields and in their own countries. So, and how do you demonstrate that? It's by giving at least 3 examples. We had this discussion I think last weekend, and we were saying that how did we determine 3 is a good number? And it's because if you do 4, then that means you would give your examples in detail. If you give 2, then they're kind of thin. So 3 is a good number, balance that allows you to give at least each example 130 words. The remaining words, you can use them in the introduction and also in the conclusion. In terms of structure, I always advocate having probably four or five paragraphs of the essay. The first paragraph could be the introduction sentence plus the first example, or you could just do an introduction and then move on to the examples. And then the three examples should have their own paragraphs. And then you should have a conclusion, which is basically a very short statement or two short statements. We'll look at the details of what you need to include in those statements. But how do you identify your leadership skills? Well, you can actually talk to your friends. You can talk to your family. You just ask your people who are close to you, what do you think, or which occasions do you think I actually demonstrated leadership? And they'll be like, when you organized a certain volunteering activity in our community, that was great. So you can list like 10 and then focus on explaining the three. But the main thing in writing your leadership essay is the star approach. A lot of people take that for granted. And believe you me, if you don't use the star approach, basically you're not applying for Chevening, especially for your leadership and influence essay. So the STAR approach is an approach that has been used to answer behavioral questions, even in oral interviews. And this is the same approach you'll use to answer the Chevening interview questions when you go for your interview. So basically, you give real life examples and explain and give details, and there's a structure. So S is for the situation, and this is generally you explaining what the problem was. And then T is for task. It's what was required to be done, not what you did, what was required to be done. And A is for action. That's exactly what you did. And R is for results or the outcomes. And some people add an L at the end, which is the lessons, but it doesn't have to be there. You don't have to give thin examples because you have to add a lesson. But if you have a lesson, great. Especially because sometimes necessary things don't work out. So you could actually focus on giving the lessons because, yeah, probably the outcome was negative, but you learned something. So because sometimes places you've demonstrated leadership do not have to result to positive outcomes. They could have resulted in negative. But if they result in positive outcomes, the better. So um, so that is really important, focusing on the STAR approach. So, and how would I use that? So you need to put it in a way that the sentences follow each other. So one of the examples I used in my essays was when I started a mentorship program in my constituency, or wherever you call it, the district or sub-county. And I had noted that the education standards in my locality were quite low. So what did I do? So that's how I explained the first two sentences. The first two sentences were, and they're very specific. You need to include time, especially the year is really important. So, and one of the mistakes I've seen is people give a lot of background information about the problem, which is really unnecessary. Really unnecessary. So you just need to write what is necessary. So I just started in 2014. I observed that the education standards in my locality were quite low. So, and then I move on and explain. And how was this affecting the society? So you need to qualify and give at least meat. Let me use the word meat in terms of the problem. So you don't just say there was this problem. You also need to say how that problem was affecting people or the people who are being affected. So, and then you move on now to what was required to be done. So that's necessarily the the commission needed to think of how to improve the education standards to make sure that the outcomes of young people was actually positive and to reduce antisocial behavior in the community. So, and then you move on to action. What exactly did you do? So, here, if you're doing things in a group, just focus on your contributions to the group because you don't have necessarily to be the leader of the group, but you can demonstrate leadership skills without a title, without a position. So, what I explained in my essays was that I started with 5 members. I explained to them what we needed to do. They were university students, and then we started recruiting more people from other universities and other colleges, and then we included young professionals, people who could be positive role models to the students in the community. And then one of the things you have to really explain in details is how the process, because remember, this is a leadership and influence essay. So if you recruited more members, you need to include how did you recruit them. So did you use WhatsApp? I mean, technically people say social media, but you need to be very specific. What platform did you use? You used Facebook, you used LinkedIn, or you used Google Forms where people fill their details and then you reach out to them. Did you write letters? Did you approach the one of the head teachers, or did you approach a local leader? So for support, you need to include those details, because at the end of the day, someone who approaches a local leader, be it be the head of a school or the principal, or maybe the education officer, and to request permission to go uh, in different schools and speak to the students, that someone is influential, because this is a leadership and influence essay. So if you start with 5 members and after 6 months you've recruited and you have 20 members, then you're influential. So ideally, this essay is more of showing, not telling. You're not telling us you're a leader. You're not telling anyone you're a leader. But through your explanation, someone can conclude and say, this is a leader. So, and then you explain how many schools for me, I went ahead and explained how many schools we went to and how we expanded activities to start giving studying materials like geometrical sets for maths. And then I give the results, how schools improved and how other neighboring districts copied our idea and started coming up with their own mentorship programs. That's influence. You've made people start doing the same things because they're positive results. So, and then you can actually end the example at that point and it's done. It's done at that point. But I always advise people, if you have been rewarded for anything like that, for me, it was being appointed to be a board member of my former high school by the county education board. So you need to include that, because now you'll be like, you know what? If these guys think I'm a leader, so you just like humbly bragging, saying these guys think I am a leader. That's when they rewarded me. So why not you? So that's the way I see it. So one of the things I see with a lot of West Africans and East Africans, they've been part of the President Obama's Young African Leaders Initiative, YALI. They are not able to bring it because you get into YALI for doing things. You've already demonstrated you're a leader, because that's the reason you are selected to be part of YALI. So once you give some of your examples, could you maybe conclude by saying, and the success of this program led to my successful maybe recruitment into the early President Obama's, and I actually advise people to just call it that, President Obama's Young African Leaders Initiative in full. So you need to actually think of things where you've been rewarded because of your leadership, examples of your leadership. You need to include them at that point. But if you've not been rewarded, then it's okay. Or if you've been promoted because of something you solved at your workplace, you need to explain a certain problem. You don't have to, and this is a mistake people have been doing these days. People are just describing their JDs, job descriptions. Oh, I work at this organization. This is what I do. This is what I do. This is what I do. You and or listing or listing the leadership positions you've held before. That's not how we write this essay. This essay focuses on like a very specific problem you solved at a certain point. That's where you focus all your energy on, and then you give another example. Another thing I would say is, because Chevening is becoming really competitive, over 70,000 applicants every year, and they only take around 1,500. And in some countries, it's quite really competitive, because you can imagine places like India or Nigeria or Indonesia, where there are so many, the population is so high and so many people are applying. So being part of the 30 or 70, I know Nairobi gets, or Kenya gets, between 30 and 40, but the applications are always between 10,000 and 12,000. So that's really, you know, competitive. So what would I say? I would say that if you really want to stand out in your Chevening application, also think of diversity in your leadership example. do not just give 3 examples from your professional work experience. Probably you can just give 2 from work and one from community activities that you've been involved in, be it volunteering, things that you do outside your 8 to 5 job that demonstrate you're a leader. It could be even things you do from your church or your mosque or from your temple, things where you volunteer, those kind of things. Could be things you do from your Rotary Club or Toastmasters group or club, those kind of things. You need to diversify so that you do not just give 3 examples, um, which is quite thin, according to me. So if you really want to stand out, give that diversity in terms of your examples. So, and the last point I would want to discuss is that when writing the leadership example, please remember to include the year. So we need to see you talking about in 2022. That was, it's always good to someone to have an idea of what you're discussing. And at the same time, always remember that try and think what do you want to showcase. So in terms of the introduction, you can always, I keep saying that, don't think of the introduction right now. First write the examples, the 3 of them, and then think of how can I introduce these 3 examples. You could see a common theme from the 3 examples, and then you use that common theme as part of your introduction. So, what do I mean by that? For example, my 3 example leadership examples were identifying community problems, assembling teams, and then crafting solutions and working through the teams to work on to actually implement the solutions. So it was really easy now to come up with an introduction and say my ability to identify problems, assemble teams. So it's really based on the examples I gave. So if your examples are not in that theme, so there's no need of using that theme again. So you need to rethink your examples and think, is there a common theme? Could it be having a vision or convincing people who are maybe your ideas of your leadership examples involve ideas that are not popular, but at the end of the day you convince people these ideas are important. So within your 3 examples, then you could use that as your introduction. In terms of conclusion of your essay, please remember it's just like 2 or 3 sentences. And instead of saying the Chevening Scholarship, with the Chevening Scholarship, cut those words and say the Chevening Scholarship will harness my leadership skills, such as you need to include what leadership skills are you looking for to be, maybe for them to be sharpened, and to what end or how that process is going to happen. So basically, this is a scholarship where the cream of the cream from every country meet. So that's one opportunity. When you interact with these people, they're going to influence you. You're going to interact with them, and that will improve your leadership skills. You're also going to learn how to work in diverse teams, people from different backgrounds. So that means improving your interpersonal skills, and those skills actually lead to people becoming better leaders. But the main thing is connecting that to the overall thing you'd want to, not really being specific, but saying you'd want what you want to do in your country. So for me, it was like the Chevening Scholarship will harness my leadership abilities through the events organized by the Chevening Secretariat or events at the university, because those are 2 different universities, to contribute to to development solutions in Kenya. So again, don't say my country. My country is 2 words. Just say your country. It's 1 word. So you'll have saved 1 word in your word count. So those are the simple tips I can give in terms of cutting your word count, and you have to think about them. So, and for every sentence you write, ask yourself, what am I trying to communicate? And do they follow each other? Do the ideas follow each other? So those are the things I would say. Next, I'm going to the networking essay. And for the networking essay, what you really need to do is remember or have those opportunities, people you've met, people who have led to your growth because of the professional relationships you have established. What do I mean by professional relationships? So, for instance, you could go for a conference and you meet someone, and the initiative has to come from you. You have to be the person who initiates the relationship. It's not the other way around. Otherwise, it will not stand out as a strong example. So, and one of the mistakes people do is they write they went to conferences and then they do not write the specific person. The name of that person and the title has to come in that example. And it's three examples. And why do I mean? Because what do I mean by a specific person? It's because if you go for a conference, even if you talk with so many people, there's only one person whose that engagement will be that they will not be at the same level, but there's always one that will be probably more meaningful to you. So that's what you need to focus on. And again, the three examples, they must have led to your professional growth. And what is professional growth? Either you got a placement, either you got a job, either you got they became your mentor, and you need if someone becomes your mentor, probably there's something they teach you some skills you gain from them. You need now to show that you actually benefited. Some people have been talking about mutual beneficial relationships, but for me, I would say Chevening is really focused on how you benefited because they're looking for someone who leverage on the Chevening opportunity or take advantage of a lot of opportunity to create meaningful networks that will benefit them, that will benefit them. So really, it's good when you write about mutual beneficial relationships, but the main thing is focusing on how you benefited yourself. So, how do you structure it? Please, people, time, places. That's my formula. People, time, places. And so it is always like you could always and again one of the challenges that Chiving identified last year was people were not writing their networks. People are not communicating. What are your networks? So for instance, your network could be if you're a Rotarian, then one of your networks is Rotary because there are Rotary events. If you're a lawyer from Nairobi, Kenya, I know there is the LSK, the Law Society of Kenya. So those are the kind of networks that they need to come out in your essays. This is how I would have a good example of a networking scenario. So you'd start like as a lawyer or as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Um, I am a member of the Law Society of Kenya, where please do not repeat Kenya, that's a mistake. And then where I attend annual conferences. So in 2022, the annual conference was held in Mombasa, where I met X, the director of or the managing partner of wherever law firm, and he presented in the plenary on these aspects. And these aspects, now you give the aspects themselves. It could be climate change law, could be community participation or something that you're really passionate about. And then you could explain how, after the plenary session, how you approached him or her. And then you explain how you requested their contact, connected on LinkedIn. Then you explain how you actually you should explain also how you keep in contact. Is it through phone calls? Is it through coffee chats? Is it through on Skype? And then explain how they were also impressed probably by your interest in certain topics, and they started sending you opportunities that would be beneficial to you. And then say probably one of the opportunities they sent was a job in their company or maybe another company, and you applied and you got the job. Simple. You can end that example at that point, at the point where you explain you got the job, but you have to explain in what circumstances did you meet that person? Was it a conference? What kind of a conference? What was the year? You need to explain the title and the name. You need to give the title and then the name and the title of that person and how you ended up benefiting. So that's a perfect example, and you have to really think of it from that angle. Otherwise, if you don't use that angle, it's sometimes, and this is something that happens a lot of times. For example, when you're a leader, you kind of come up with uh, some professional relationships that end up people coming and maybe speaking at your organization, and then your organization does things that benefit the people. So sometimes you drift and digress and start talking about how many people benefited. Technically, that has become now a leadership example and not now a networking example. So it becomes a networking example when you end it where you benefited. But if you give more weight to maybe you met someone who decided to come and support your organization, and 500 people in your organization benefited because of the initiative of that person coming to that your organization, then technically that's a leadership example. And when you approach people to review essays, that's the advantage of sending them all the four essays, because they can see those things and now advise you. You can actually tweak this one. It becomes a better leadership example than whatever you've given, and probably you can now look for another networking example. I hope that one is very clear, because I feel like people get challenges in writing their networking examples. The other thing is, always think about the conclusion, and the conclusion of your three examples. The conclusion should be a separate paragraph, could be 2 or 3 sentences. And here, what do you want to communicate? You want to communicate and say that you're going to network in the UK as a student, and you need to be very sure or write who are you going to network with, and then to what end are you going to network. And also, you're also going to network once you go back to your country. And when you go back to your country, who are you going to network with? So one thing is that Chevening organizes events like the Best of British, which is technically more of visiting things like the Houses of Parliament in London, House of Commons in London, and you also get to go to the decentralized ones in Wales, and also in the other devolved nations. Remember, the UK is made up of the 3 or 4 nations: England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. So, and there are also other events which are themed. So, for example, I attended one on languages at the University of Greenwich, and I never knew I would end up at the University of Greenwich later. So, yeah. So, those events, you can mention them and say, the Chevening Scholarship will allow me to grow my professional networks by actively participating in Chevening events organized by the Secretariat, such as the Best of British. And then you can explain also events organized at the university. Then you can talk to what gain. Ideally, you network because you want to grow. So you want to network with people in your profession, the the faculty, the professors, all those kind of people. Those are the people you need to network with. So, and also you're also going to network with students in your field, both at the school level and the Chevening level, because you might have Cheveners, working on climate change or certain, fields. Or then when you go to your uni, you'll also meet people from either self-funded or from other scholarships that are also working in your field. Those are the kind of networks you need to explain, but very briefly. Don't go into details. This is just a conclusion, an overview, saying these are how I'm going to network. You could also say how you're going to network with people in your country. And basically, this is the please remember, if you have an alumni association in your country, please mention it, because mentioning it, they're like, oh, this person already knows there's an alumni association in their country. So it's not just as simple as that. So again, I mentioned last weekend, people are writing about 50,000 alumni. That number has changed. If you write 50,000, probably you might disadvantage yourself because you're not reading the Chevening materials. Right now, it's over 55,000. 50,000 was a few years ago, and of course, every year 1,500 Cheveners graduate. So right now, it's over 55,000. And ideally, I wouldn't really go to give that number. It's not really important. Just mention there is a Chevening Alumni Association in your country, and mention why are you going to network with them. And probably you can also not network with everyone in the Chevening Alumni Association, because you also want to network with people in your own field, people working in areas. So you can actually say specifically, I'll probably I'm going to network with members of the Alumni Association. If you're Kenyan, you'd say Kenyan Alumni Association, Kenya Chevening Alumni Association, working in the fields of gender and development, if that's your area, or climate change and development, those kind of things. You need to be very specific again. So that's more on the Chevening networking essay. And now I'm going to discuss the studying in the UK essay. So this essay, people have been messing it a lot because they just copy stuff from the websites. So, and you're supposed to demonstrate that you have researched your courses. You know exactly what you want to study, and you know exact skills that you want to acquire, and probably how you want to use them briefly. So you need to justify your choice of the program and the choice of the university. So I have always said it's always good to start with a problem, because you 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 actually create a mental picture to the someone who's reading your essays. So in my case, I talked about food insecurity in Kenya, and I actually didn't just give statistics from the from the government. Sometimes people go and give statistics from World Bank or or FAO. I would prefer right now, with the insights I have, right, you give statistics from, most of the times, use national organizations in your country, preferably government, like the Kenya. In Kenya, we have the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So if you want to know anything, the population, people who are food insecure, all those kind of things, so use them, and then explain what the reasons behind. So this number of people, or this proportion of people, are food insecure in Kenya. So, and then you go ahead and say this is caused by, give like three reasons, what causes, and these are factual. So they're not things you're imagining. There are things you've already also read in your literature. I would also assume that you're applying for courses, and you know the problems in your country, and you actually know the causes of those problems, and not these are things that are already in literature, so that you're not creating things out of nowhere. So basically, I'm assuming you read issues concerning your area. So, and then I would explain what causes, it could be food insecurity is part of it, climate and weather conditions. Could also be underinvestment in all those kind of things. And also it could be knowledge practices. Maybe people do not know how to practice good agricultural practices. So, and then why are those three reasons I've listed there really important? Because when you're justifying the modules for every course that you'll take, then you can actually bring the how you can actually connect them and say, I'm looking forward to, now I'm starting mid sentence, in mid paragraph, one of the examples. I'm looking forward to tackling or doing the module agriculture project planning in management, agriculture project planning and management in developing countries, taught by Professor so and so. Please, every time you mention a module, mention the convener or the professor. Why is it important? Chevening feels like, or whoever is reading your essays will be like, yeah, this person has researched on their course and they know who teaches that module. And then so going back to the sentence, I'm looking forward um, to studying the module agriculture project planning and management in developing countries, taught by Professor X and X, which will which will probably, you can use the word, which will help me acquire skills. You need to list the skills, let's say project management or agriculture project management in management of agriculture projects, or things like maybe the sustainable technologies that could be used in irrigation, could be used, because as I said, one of the problems I said in the listing of the problem was climate and weather conditions. So those become really important in terms of how you justify. So because of I read a lot, sometimes I'm reviewing essays and I'm like, whatever problem you've explained in your country, you're not linking it to the courses, because the courses also determine why are you selecting those courses. That again, you're going to justify. So in this case, then Chevening has raised an issue that people focus so much on university rankings, and they fail to remember to talk about the courses themselves. And the courses, you can discuss things to do with how the course is delivered. We call it the mode of delivery. Is it through lectures? Is it through workshops? You know, is it through student presentations? And why are these things important? Don't just say, I want to do this course because it's delivered through lectures. Why are lectures important to you? You need to say why. Personalize that statement. So in the same way, don't say I want to go to a uni because they have a library that opens 24 hours. Most libraries open 24 hours, so that's not really an outstanding reason. But you could say, I want to do the program appeals to me. I'm assuming you've introduced the program, and you'd say, "My, I always advocate, please let the readers know your first choice, your second choice, and third choice. So, and each choice should be in its own paragraph. So you'd say, my first choice is MSc Gender and Development from the University of Sussex. Then you'd say the university appeals to me because why does the university appeal to you in the first place? So sometimes people say University of Sussex is the best university in development courses in the UK, but then you don't leave it at that point. You need to say, and this will help me acquire skills and competences that will help me promote gender and development, maybe integration in Cameroon. So again, don't say my country, just say the country direct. So if you leave, which will help me integrate gender and development practices in Cameroon, then your statement will appear as if you just copied from the website. And again, that is disadvantageous to you. So if a course has a field trip, that means you be able to go to maybe another country or to maybe to acquire practical skills. You need to say that. So the program, now it's the program of the university. The program appeals to me because it has a field trip which help me gain practical skills and maybe know the challenges that development practitioners experience in the field, which I can apply in my career. So, but if you leave it at the point where you just say the course appeals to me because it has a field trip, you just have appeared as if you just copied from a website. So you really need to add those statements that personalize your application. They make someone feel they exactly know why they want to do this course. This field trip is important to them. They have looked at the course, they have studied the modules, all those kind of things. Also, someone who's mentioned the modules, someone who's mentioned the modules. So, and every time you mention a module, mention the convener and either the lecturer in charge. The reason I'm saying a convener is because sometimes you can have a module which is taught by like 5 different people. So this one comes and teaches a specific topic. This one comes and teaches a specific topic. So in that case, the leader of the module is called the module convener. But the individual people who teach every topic become lecturers. So, but then some modules are taught by the same person for the entire 13 or 12 weeks that you'll be doing the module or per term. So that's how I would say it. And the other thing probably I would also add is that when you're writing, you're studying in the UKSA, please, 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 you might explain a good problem in your country in the introduction, but then you're not saying how these are statements that I always advocate or advise people to finish their introduction with. That is the introduction of the studying in the UK essay. So after you've given stats about or statistics about food insecurity, and do not overuse statistics, sorry to say that, after you've given the context of the problem in your country, then I think then you need to go is, and then you've given the causes, you've really made someone understand the problem, not just saying climate change is a problem in where that is your country, and then you just do not explain more. How is it affecting people? So, right? So when you, of course, if you want to study stuff like climate change, you will have an opening lines about climate change in your country. Then you also have how it affects people and probably why adaptation is difficult. And then you explain this has motivated me to pursue an MSc in climate change policy, or a postgraduate degree in climate change policy. Some people want to list all the 3 courses at that level. For me, you're applying for courses that are related to each other. So you'll actually be using so many words if you want to list all of them in the opening paragraphs. For me, I would look for a phrase that captures whatever I want to study. So if you want to study climate, you might want to study climate change and development in one university. The other university might have it as MSc climate change policy. The other one might have it climate change and environmental management. So for me, I would just say this has motivated me to pursue a postgraduate degree in climate change, right? So you've captured all the 3 by saying climate change. But when you go to your second paragraph where you explain your first choice, then you need to be very specific. My first choice is MSc or MA in this offered at this university, that specific university, of course. And then you justify, give at least two academic reasons or three, and really, as I say, don't just appear like you just posted them from a university website. Qualify them, make someone feel there's a connection between the module and what is happening in your country, right, in one sentence. That is so that they don't appear like you're copy pasting. And I think I have repeated that statement so many times because I feel like it's a huge problem. So the other thing is that when you go to the conclusion, just discuss the skills you're going to gain. So really, you're concluding studying in the UKSA. So you might say the Chevening scholarship, by or maybe by studying in the UK, I'll gain skills. And again, when I say skills, you need to say which skills. So it's not just saying skills. You need to list the skills, like two or three of them, and say how that will help you probably solve, if you listed about food insecurity, or maybe contribute to solutions on climate change in your country, if you listed climate change as a problem in the introduction. So as you can see, your essay really is a story you're telling, and that story is, this is a problem, this is how the problem really affects people, and this has motivated me to pursue these courses. And these courses, you list them, and you, this is why I want to do this course, because of these modules, and these modules will help me gain this knowledge and skills, which now you can link now to the problem in your country. And then you conclude at the end of your essay. So having got to that level, I want now to go to the career plan. So the career plan essay is so easy, but people mess up with it because they don't want to dream. But when it comes to dream, of course, there's a free card in dreaming. Wherever you want to be, you can be it. But goals have to be smart. They have to be specific, they have to be measurable, they have to be achievable, they have to be realistic, and they have to be time bound. But time bound here doesn't mean that you say in 5 years or in 10 years. No, just say in the short term, and then in the medium term, in the long term. So those are the three, the body of that essay is the three paragraphs. In the short term, you discuss your short term career plan. In the medium term, you discuss your medium term career plan, and the long term, you discuss your long term career plan. But of course, then you also had an introduction at the top and a conclusion at the end. So here, my main point, and to, because I know you've watched the other videos, because I've made a specific video on career plan. The other video for last weekend is available, and you also have access to my blog where I explain all these things in details. The main problem people have in the career plan is they just discuss the short term in two sentences and then go and discuss their long term in the entire paragraph. So again, for me, I would say give them equal weight. So the three of them, at least 130 words for every career plan: short term, medium term, and long term. And then the remaining words, you can use them in introduction and the conclusion. So in terms of the organization of the essay, what you need to do is, first of all, introduce a problem, just, and most likely it's going to be related to what you introduced at the studying the UK essay. So, and then once you introduce the problem, and then at the end of that paragraph one, the introduction, you can say, this has motivated me to pursue a career in. Here it's not now studying a postgraduate degree in, this is pursuing a career in climate change law, if you are doing things related to climate change law, or if you're doing an LLM. So motivated me to pursue a career in international commercial law, you know. Two, so for example, I have seen some excellent essays where people write about the business, how businesses fail in their countries, and they explain all those issues to connect them to corporate governance. And then they come and say, this has motivated me to pursue an LLM. So of course, now they can link an LLM with corporate governance and helping businesses maybe survive beyond their first year. And that leads to maybe things to do with employment, you know, all those kind of things, you know, when companies do not survive, of course, people lose jobs. So, and then of course, now you give your short-term career plan. So just saying the short-term career plan here, for every career plan, please, 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 please mention the organization you're going to work for. Some people say, I want to a senior position in the government. Really? We've said it has to be specific. You're just supposed to dream. Just say, In the short term, I would want to work as a director of maybe um, at least one of the organizations where you can become a director, if or maybe one of the directors of basic education in the Ministry of Education in your country. Basic education, of course, has a director, and because there are levels of education, so higher education has its own director, and all of them serve under the same ministry. So really, you need to be very specific. I want to be X in Y organization. So, and then you explain what do you want to do. Like list three things, not listing in terms of, but in sentences. The three things you think are important you want to achieve, and then the three things, why are they important, and probably who will you need to partner with in order to achieve those things that you've listed for every. So don't say I want to work and with maybe one of the UN agencies. So really, that's not specific. You really need to say which specific. You really need to set the UN agency you want to work for and what position. And then, so for example, in my case, before I give you my examples, I'll let you know that you also need to show you're growing. So I've been challenged a few times. I've reviewed essays and people write, and you'd be like, are they really dreaming? So probably you can read from the essays that they volunteer in a small organization in their community, and someone is saying that they want to finish their master's degree in the UK and just come continue working there. Really? I feel that's not dreaming enough. That's personal. So I would really expect someone either comes, if you have your own CBO, because people have their own CBOs, probably you'd say you'd expand. Probably if you're dealing with one district, say now you, with the skills you've gained, you can now go and run a CBO in 5 districts. That's growth. Otherwise, why do you want to? There are things you can do without a master's degree from the UK. So that's, you need to show that really that master's degree is important. So, and then so show growth in terms of moving from short term to medium term and long term. The other thing that you need to note is that in your career plan, when you design it, also be realistic. Be realistic. We know in the Western world, people can move from anywhere and run for president. It has happened. But in our African countries, for you to become president, you must have started somewhere. Probably you must have vied for MP, or that's a member of parliament, or a senator, or something like that. So, or maybe done something big in your country. So don't just come and say that you want to be something, and someone can realistically say there is a missing gap here. You know, so we what I'm advocating is for you to be realistic in terms of what, yes, it's a free card in dreaming, but be realistic in terms of your goals. So what do I mean by that, and how can I qualify all those statements I've made? So for me, I had run for member of parliament in my country in 2017, and which was unsuccessful. I'm a retired politician, by the way. And in 2018, when I was writing my essays, 2018, I was writing my essays. I wrote in my short-term career plan that I was coming and starting a CBO to train farmers on good agricultural practices. And why was it necessary? Because one of the challenges reasons I had listed for food insecurity was actually in terms of knowledge and extension. So the CBO would come and close that gap of knowledge and extension in agriculture. And then I was saying that I was going to partner with organizations that offer credit to farmers. I was also going to partner with the county governments or local government because agriculture is devolved. So you see, I have already explained a good career plan. I want to do this, and these are the people I can partner with them in order to make sure that those things happen. And what will be the end game? You train farmers, and then if they apply the practices and the skills you've taught them, and maybe even including things like keeping financial records, that will help in commercialization of small scale agriculture, which will lead people making more money, and that has connection now to alleviating poverty and also improving their household food security. Simple. In the medium term, I was looking forward to becoming the minister for agriculture, or concerning food security at the county level, local government. So, of course, this is an appointed position, but with my links in politics before, although these days they also get positions from professional without even any linkage to politics. So for a minister, you can be appointed even without participating in politics. So I explained, because now that's an appointed position, that how I will work with the county assembly, the people who make the laws, to enshrine some of these issues on food security and agriculture in laws. So be it employing more extension officers at the county level, because now you are in an executive decision making power. You have the executive decision making power, where you can now influence policies directly without working through NGOs. You are the one making those decisions. You could, I wrote things like sinking more boreholes to deal with the problem of water, or small irrigation projects. So, and then you explain how that again will, what problems will you be solving by that, and how is that going to solve now the original problem you posted, be it it was climate change and the weather, all those things about inadequate rainfall in most African countries, or in Kenya, where it's 60% of the country is semi-arid. So those kind of things, you connect all the dots, and then who are you going to work with? First of all, you're a minister, so you're going to work with the county assembly. You're also going to work with the NGOs, because NGOs also partner with government. So you need to bring all those concepts in one story. Finally, in the long-term career plan, I said I want to become a member of parliament. So, and in parliament, there are committees where there is a agriculture, trade and cooperatives committee that deals with matters to do agriculture, cooperatives. And I said that level, other than now building on the successes from the county or local government, I would now replicate that at national level in terms of making laws. And MPs also participate in delegations negotiating trade agreements. So, and I mentioned trade agreements between Kenya and the UK, and how that's gonna foster relations between the two countries. So I didn't force Kenya UK relation. Don't try to force it. But I am sure if you look well enough, there are things that the UK government is doing in your country, and you can actually bring them and now integrate them in your essays. The idea again, do not, do not put your country in bad faith. Like, oh, we are a poor country. No, don't do that. Just write respectfully the challenges that are in your country, and in terms of also research, how you can collaborate, because there are a lot of collaborations between research happening in the West, and also what is happening in the global South. So all those issues, integrate them in your essays, and then at the end of it all, who are you going to work with? So, and what are the end results? So finally, the conclusion of your career plan essay is very easy. So what's the main problem, main goal you want to solve? Now that one you can connect with the, maybe if your country has a vision, if your country has a development blueprint. I know most countries has Vision 2030 or Vision 2050. If not that, you can discuss that in connection with the SDGs, and or both of them. So ideally, because we are all trying to solve certain problems, and those problems have, in one way or the other, are linked to the SDGs. So you could say, with the Chevening scholarship, I'll acquire, or maybe your career plan or your career uh, profile will lead you to solving the problem of food security and poverty, and help in contributing to solutions to or contribute to SDGs 1 and 2. That is no poverty and zero hunger, because they are so linked. So you can conclude, or maybe, and you can add and achieve vision. Kenya has Vision 2030, and probably a few years ago we had the Big Four agenda for the previous government. Now, of course, it's no longer agenda. So, but if you have even the 5-year term plans, you can mention them in your country and link them to your essays. Thank you very much. I'm now going to take questions. Sorry, today we took much longer because I felt the need to go through step by step. So if you have any questions, I can see someone has started with a question on, while tackling the networking essay, is that technique applicable, because it's giving me a hard time. I've seen some past Chevening um, talking about the STAR approach. Chevening, people who've gotten the Chevening scholarship, of course, we are so many, and we've written so many things. At the end of the day, your judgment is key. We're just here to advise you. But for me, I wasn't keen on applying the STAR technique in the networking example. I was keen on explaining, where did I meet the person? When did I meet them? How did I approach them? How have I kept in touch with them? And how have they led me to professional growth? For me, it was the story, but not the STAR technique. The STAR technique for me, I insist on using it in the leadership and influence essay. But some Cheveners, people who've gotten the Chevening before, still talk about applying the STAR technique in the networking essay. So that I'll leave it to you to make that judgment. Should the career goals relate to what I'm already doing or just an improvement of what I am doing? Technically, you have a free card to dream, so you can do more than whatever you're doing. Was I doing anything in terms of agriculture? Honestly, I don't think I was doing anything concerning agriculture by the time I got the scholarship. So if you're lucky, then you might be doing it. In fact, some people have used the Chevening scholarship to change their career plans, or even their fields. So, but of course, there are other areas that kind of come and strengthen your application and justify where you're trying to change that. So, it's more of also being yourself, being authentic, and knowing exactly what you want to do, and being real, and also being um, kind of being realistic in whatever you want to do. So, for example, if you studied, let's say, education, and you're a teacher, but you're so concerned about certain things happening in the community, and you started those initiatives concerning. So your career plan, you might not come and write how you're going to continue being a teacher. You might actually study something else and actually use it to transition to whatever you've been doing in your voluntary work. So, for example, you could be a teacher, and right now you're so kind of in terms of looking at things to do with. I don't know why I'm obsessed with climate change, but maybe you could also be looking at things like technology and how technology can help communities. You could apply for a degree that makes you also transition from teaching, maybe if you're a teacher or education, to now things to do with technology. So, but that's because there are things you've been doing that are connected. So you can't just bring up the idea of changing if you've not already started something towards that line. So it's either something connected to whatever you studied or something connected to something you're doing. So that's how I see it. So yeah. Um, um, is it okay to choose the same course in different universities, or must the three courses be different? So I'll go back to, and this is a challenge I've seen when people are applying for the Chevening scholarship. And basically, the courses might have the same title. And I keep on saying this statement every year, but they are totally different. So look at the modules. It is the module that will determine whether the course is actually what you want to study. Why am I saying so? I'll give from my own experience. The MSc Food Security at the University of Warwick, where I got the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, is kind of really a science course that really has modules on maybe things to do with biotechnology or genetic modification of foods. I mean, a lot of natural science in it. But the MSc Food Security at the University of Reading, which I also had an offer, is the socioeconomic aspects of food insecurity, issues to do with how do you solve food insecurity in areas with conflict, all those kind of things. So really, the two courses might be have the same title, but they are totally different. So go to the modules. So don't just say you want to see, don't just use the titles of the courses, because that's not enough. And the other thing people ask is, tell me the universities that do not have application fees. I mean, really, the idea of selecting your universities you should start with is go and select all the universities you've seen that offer your course. Then start narrowing down based on your reasons. Probably I want to study in London, so, or maybe I don't want to study in London because of the high cost of living, you know. So all those kind of things. So at the end of the day, then you're left with a number of universities, and you select them. So ideally, it's not really focusing on your courses that are the same or courses from the same university, because sometimes courses from the same university can be closely related. And I know the people who are applying for courses at the University of Reading, there's very little difference when you apply for MSc Food Security and MSc Agriculture and Development at the University of Reading. You know, I mean, because you even have common lectures between the two, and also other courses that are in the same school. And that applies even to people who study gender and development and maybe other courses in development in the same university, you can actually just a few modules change the course. A few modules is what changes the course. So check your modules and confirm that the modules are really in line with whatever you want to do. So previously I have reviewed essays for someone and I was like, you're writing about gender and development, how you want to pursue a career in gender and development, but the courses you want to pursue are not even related to gender and development. Why don't you just put the courses gender and development? So ideally, courses and the career plan go hand in hand. So, but when you're looking at the courses, look at the modules. So, the other one is you've registered. Sorry, um, hmm, 3 courses should be in the same category. Generally, you should be having courses that are related in one way or the other, because otherwise you're not going to have different career plans. I want to do this or this. It's very specific. So, for that to happen, then you need to have studied very specific things. So, what do I mean? You can't just go and list gender and development and then come and list climate change and development. You get what I mean? You either focus on gender or climate change. So that means you can have courses that are related to climate change, but then limit yourself. So ideally, the course goes, again and I repeat, the course goes hand in hand with your career plan. So being in the same category again, it's really go back to the modules. They might be in the same category, but they're not speaking to you. Like they're not really whatever you want to do. So don't focus so much on the course category. Focus on the modules. Look at the modules. So are you interested in this module? Are you interested in this module? So when you list, you can now see these are the courses I want to do. I hope that is helpful. So right this moment, is it mandatory to manage the conditional and conditional letter? Will it affect if I don't manage to submit those? Not really. So at the point of the deadline of submitting application, Chevening just needs you to list the courses and at the same time identify the 3 courses in your essays. But during the interview, you're given a chance to change your courses. I actually changed my courses during my interview. So I dropped a course, introduced another one, and made it my first choice. That's what happened because I already had an offer. So you can change your courses at the um, at the at the at the at the interview stage. And why can you change the courses? Is because probably you might be applying to universities, and in one way or the other, a university fails to give you an offer, or another university introduces stringent conditions, and then another one is so easy for you to get an offer. Or maybe you feel like I've done more research after the application, and I feel like I want this university more than the other one. So again, you can change your courses at that level. So the other thing you might note about the courses is that right now you might be getting a lot of conditional offers based on certain conditions. You might not have all the documents, so they'll give you a conditional offer until you meet the conditions. When people are notified that they are successful in June, they are given until mid-July to meet the conditions of their offers. So there is still another deadline by Chevening. So you can be having conditional offers until July after you even being selected. That's how it happens. So you don't need to worry about conditional and unconditional right now. What I would be worried about is, have I researched on my courses? Have I applied? And I can link this to another question that was asked by someone, whether you need to have applied to universities before you apply for Chevening. These are 2 independent processes. So what does that mean? Chevening just requires you to have an offer by July, but you'll have to list those universities, the 3, in your application. So some people apply at the same time. Like you could be applying to your universities and you could also be writing your essays. Some people prefer to work on the essays because they have a deadline of November and then focus on the university applications after November. But it's also good to be focusing because sometimes when you look at the courses, they give you insights on what to include in your essays. So it's really not really a thing of which is which. You can do either both the process at the same time, but focus on submitting your application. Otherwise, if you don't submit a strong application, then I don't know whether even researching for those courses might be helpful applying. So focus on submitting a strong application by the deadline, and then focus on getting the offers. And then once you get the conditional offers, start meeting those conditions as early as possible and get your unconditional offers early enough. I think they offer a chance for you to upload the unconditional offers in the system before a certain date, but you can't upload them after your interview. So after your interview, even the changing, once you change during the interview, they change from their end. So from your end, you won't see the changes from the from the application. So they change from their end. So that's something you might have to note. Then, when talking of what the UK is doing in my country, should it officially be communicated through the DFID, or can I get it through the news platforms? So sometimes this is a matter of some you might encounter in research. Um, First of all, DFID no longer exists. So I hope you note that. If you write DFID, DFID no longer exists. So now we have the FCDO as a whatever foreign commonwealth and development organization managing everything. So and then the other thing is that if you see something in the news, why not go back to the website and get the details? Go back to the so if you see a news organization maybe reporting on an event where the FCDO was working with government to help small scale farmers, why don't you go to the FCDO website in your country and read more about that initiative and bring it to your essays rather than focusing on the news? I hope you get that point. So, and it doesn't really just mentioning doesn't really bring all the details. It's just mentioning, showing them that you know, and it's something that you're keen to explore or maybe expand those initiatives between that are being done between your country and the FCDO. So, in the application, climate change, environment, and development will which development studies, public health policy. For I mean, it depends. So, if it's climate change and you're linking it to public health, then it's better to set it that way. But if it's just climate change and development, just place it at climate change or climate change policy, whatever. Just make sure you have the right wording and something that is encompassing your three courses. So, and I really don't know your courses, so maybe you can reach out to me privately through LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, and probably I might be able to answer that question. The other one is yes, English test and funding. So the Chevening removed the English test, so you no longer need to do the English test for the Chevening scholarship, but the universities might require you to do an English test. So initially we used to meet, for in our case, we used to meet the English tests for the Chevening scholarship and for the university, but then the Chevening removed. So we were left now to meeting the Chevening Chevening English requirements. So and that one really, even for the uni right now, some of them accepts your high school. So for example, I know people in West Africa, if you studied in English or your language of instruction was English, and also in East Africa, they do accept your KCSE. So you really have to know in what cases can you have an exemption. So because Chevening doesn't need an English test, if the university exempts you, then you no longer need anything. You need no longer you've already met the English test. So, and you can look for advice on how to write those letters to apply for exemption. So, had between now and the interview stage, when are we expected to complete? I've just answered that. So, and please, 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 one thing I'll tell you, potential Chevening applicants, make the website, the Chevening website, your friend. All these questions, go to the FAQs. Those questions have been answered there. So I've just said that the English test is no longer a requirement by Chevening. And whether you'll need it will depend on the university you're applying to, because they'll have their own requirements. So it depends on the university. Some universities will accept your high school. Some universities can exempt you based on other issues. So it's for you to make that decision, and also it's that a relationship that you manage between you and the university in terms of those requirements, especially the English one to be specific. So for reference letters, I'm working for 11 years. Do I still need to submit academic references? Honestly, yes, because Chevening wants two references: one to discuss your academic ability and one to discuss other issues. So who else can discuss your academic ability that you can complete a master's other than someone who's taught you, or maybe a letter from the university where you did your undergraduate? So I know it can be stressful, and I know some people have submitted two professional letters. I don't know whether they've succeeded. I don't know. So this is something that you might want to engage with also the secretariat, because you're allowed to write them emails if you have a query. Ask them if you can't get an academic from your uni, whether they can accept two letters from maybe your former supervisors. You can ask them that question. But basically, I would really advise you to get at least a letter from one of the institution where you've studied, because they need to talk about issues to do with your academic ability, learning, whatever, and all those issues are really important. Yeah. Um, that's helpful. You've asked them already. Thank you very much. Any other burning question before I? So thank you very much, people. I'm happy to see you, and I wish you all the best in your achieving application. And in case you have any question, please, you can comment on the videos as you watch them, and also engage the Chevening website, because there's a lot of information there. Go to the blogs. Again, the blogs are more detailed. Write like you really, really want the scholarship. Sometimes people ask questions that are so simple, questions that you can actually just Google and find the answer. Remember, you're applying for a master's degree to be a researcher, and you'll be doing some kind of independent research. So, how can you do that if you can't go to the website and get that information, first of all? So, not every question really has to be thrown so to someone. You can actually go to the website and look at those issues. FAQs were referred to me as the email response to secretariat. Yeah, they are FAQs, frequently answered questions. So you need to go to the Chevening website, check the FAQs, because the questions you're asking are the same questions they've been asked by previous applicants, and they've answered them there. So please, for the masterclass registration, I can see we have 14 people today. So if you had registered, you just have to reach out to me. And I keep on repeating this, that my social media channels are with you people. You have my LinkedIn, you have my Facebook, you have my Instagram. So if you just drop me a message and say you attended my first or second masterclass, I'll just check my list and I'll give you the email address. But I can't give my email address right now. So I'll give you my email address in private, and then we can now organize when you're going to get your 30 minutes one-on-one session. And as soon as you can book it, the better, because believe you me, again, if you come to me the last week of November before submission, and I have my own deadlines, too bad for you, because you'll have had more than 5 weeks of organizing this one. So as soon as you're ready, let me know, and then we organize the session, and then I give you feedback on your essays. So there is no link. Please, there's no link. As I've said and I explained again, it's you to engage me. If you've registered, engage me. And the reason I'm saying this is because I don't have time to, I only want to focus so much on the people who've registered, but really I would want to help as many people as possible, but I have a limit in terms of time. So that's the reason I'm focusing on the few who have registered. So, but the video is public, you can come back and watch it. And I don't know whether we are going to have another session. So this is something I might need to see whether there are more people who missed and they're interested, or we can change the format and see how it works. The idea is I'm here to support you, and I hope once you get a scholarship, you'll support other people, and yeah. So hopefully we'll meet in the UK in the next. I'm here in the next 1 year, still doing my PhD. So yeah, and all the best in your applications. And I hope through the achieving process, application process, people, there's something that happens. It changes how all the scholarships you happen to apply afterwards. Because when someone tells you, write a time when you were a leader, write how you've networked before, write the courses you want to do and what you want to be in the future, you start thinking what kind of life you want to lead. So in that, even if you don't get the scholarship, you get some clarity over your life. So, and some people also, I'll advise you, you might not get the Chevening scholarship, but the Commonwealth scholarship, you can apply and get it too. So the idea is apply as many scholarships as possible and cast your net wider, because you never know where your luck lies. All the best, people, and have a great weekend. And it was nice seeing you. Please reach out to me as soon as your essays are ready, and then I'll be able to support you. Thank you very much.